Hello, my dear friend. Curious soul who dares to delve into the depths of truth, even when it is more convoluted than the most intricate lie. Today I will unveil to you the story of Elena, a woman whose dignity was trampled by the arrogance of a blind husband and a cruel mother-in-law, who demanded a DNA test for their son, believing they would expose her that way. But they did not know that the result would not only confirm paternity, but, in a turn as dramatic as it was unexpected, would reveal the shocking and dark truth about the very family inheritance they so guarded, uncovering a generational farce that stunned everyone present. Elena Sanchez moved through the Altamirano mansion with the same caution as a ghost, her steps silenced by the fear of disturbing, of being seen, of being judged. Married to Ricardo Altamirano, the heir to one of the city's oldest and most respected fortunes, Elena, despite her title as Lady of the House, was treated as an intruder, an upstart without lineage, a blemish on the impeccable tapestry of their illustrious surname. Her hands, though delicate, showed the marks of her previous life, of hours dedicated to her passion for art restoration, to the delicacy of brushes and solvent. They were not the smooth and pristine hands that Doña Amalia, her mother-in-law, proudly displayed, adorned with sparkling jewels. Her clothes, though always clean and well-ironed, lacked the luster of the haute couture garments that Ricardo and his mother wore with indifference. She usually wore simple linen or cotton dresses, often with a small fraying at the hem that she herself mended with almost invisible stitches, a detail that went unnoticed by them, but not by her. Her face, framed by a chestnut mane that she always gathered in a low ponytail, usually held an expression of barely disguised weariness, a sadness clinging to the corners of her lips, a product of constant humiliation. Her position in that house was a golden cage. She shared the opulent space with her husband, Ricardo, a man who at first had seemed kind and attentive, but who, under the suffocating influence of his mother, Doña Amalia, had become a reflection of her cruelty. The rooms were vast, adorned with antique furniture of precious woods, Flemish tapestries, and oil paintings of questionable taste, all symbols of a wealth that was not hers, a wealth she did not value, but which they used as a weapon. The scent of polished wax and fresh flowers mingled with the stale aroma of superiority. Elena had her own art studio in a forgotten corner of the mansion, a small oasis where white walls and the smell of paint were her only solace. But even there, she felt observed, judged, under the constant shadow of disdain. She vividly remembered a family dinner, where Doña Amalia, with an icy smile, had commented to guests, "Our Elena is so simple. A true folk artist. Isn't it charming, Ricardo, that your wife still clings to those humble passions?" Ricardo had laughed nervously, without defending her, without even looking at her. Elena then felt a sharp pang in her chest. Her breath hitched, and she had to clench her fists under the table to contain the fury and humiliation that threatened to overflow. The food on her plate turned tasteless, and the air, dense and heavy, burned in her throat. Elena's life in the mansion was a choreography of slights. Every morning, while they had breakfast in the majestic dining room, Doña Amalia made sure to drop a poisonous comment about Elena's lack of refinement, about how she didn't know how to behave in society, about her humble origins that would always haunt her. Dear Elena, don't you think it's time you stopped those such laborious hands? More frequent manicures wouldn't hurt, would they, Ricardo? Doña Amalia would say, with a smile that didn't reach her obsidian eyes. Ricardo simply nodded, his gaze avoiding Elena's, his silence a deafening cry of abandonment. Elena felt the burning in her cheeks. Her heart shrank in pain. Her eyes fixed on the grain of the table, as if she could find answers in the ancient wood. It was as if every comment was a small jab, a constant reminder that she did not belong, that she would never be enough for them. The reason for this cruel treatment was simple. Doña Amalia considered Elena a fortune hunter, a woman who had taken advantage of her son Ricardo's kindness to gain access to the Altamirano fortune. It didn't matter that Ricardo and Elena had met at university, where they both studied art, and that their love had blossomed far from social pressures. For Doña Amalia, the fact that Elena came from a middle-class family of artists and bohemians was an unforgivable blemish on the impeccable Altamirano family tree. She, in her twisted mind, could not conceive that someone from outside their circle could genuinely love her son without a hidden interest. Ricardo, a man of weak character, had progressively yielded to his mother's manipulation, allowing doubt and disdain to infiltrate their marriage, to the point of treating Elena with the same coldness as his mother. Every time Doña Amalia threw a designer suit at her to examine, as if Elena were a seamstress rather than her daughter-in-law, she did so with an almost disgusted gesture, as if the mere contact with Elena's pure and delicate hands could contaminate her. "Make sure mediocrity doesn't rub off on you, Elena," she had once said, with a mocking smile that didn't reach her cold eyes, leaving Elena feeling the icy breath of humiliation. However, a secret beat in Elena's heart. Not only was she an exceptionally talented art restorer, with an infallible eye for authenticity and a prodigious ability to replicate ancient techniques, but she was also a direct descendant of a line of artists and collectors who, centuries ago, had been the true custodians of an art collection that, ironically, was now the crown jewel of the Altamirano fortune. Her grandfather, before he died, had revealed fragments of this story to her, whispers of a hidden legacy, a truth buried under layers of time and betrayal. Elena possessed an almost supernatural intuition for inconsistencies, an ability to read the traces of the past in every stroke, every brushwork, every scar in an artwork's history. And that same intuition extended to people. She could perceive lies, half-truths, hidden emotions behind smiles. This ability was her true treasure, a deep knowledge that the Altamirano family, in their superficiality, would never suspect. It was an unpolished diamond amidst coal, a faint light that, if ignited, could burn the deepest shadows of the Altamirano history. Only her grandmother, now very old and with a fragile memory, had been her confidant, though her memories mingled with delirium. "Don't let the shine of falsehood blind you, my child. True art, true blood, always find their way," she had whispered once, her words like an oracle. Elena, though still not fully grasping the extent of that legacy, treasured every fragment, knowing that somewhere, somehow, lay a truth far greater than she could imagine. One day, Elena's world fractured. Ricardo, with a pale face and an absent gaze, entered Elena's art studio, a place he rarely visited. His words were an icy dagger. "Elena, my mother, wants a paternity test for Leo. It's for the family's sake, for the Altamirano legacy. We need to be sure." Elena felt the air escape her lungs. Leo, her 5-year-old son, her ray of sunshine, her only comfort in that cold mansion, was the center of her universe. A paternity test? After 5 years? Elena didn't need any certainty. She knew Leo was Ricardo's son. Her heart pounded with a dull fury, a pain so sharp it blurred her vision. Humiliation mingled with a wave of rage. Certainty of what, Ricardo? That I'm a liar? That I'm unfaithful? That our son isn't yours? Is this what your mother has put into your head? Her words, full of pain, came out in a barely audible whisper, yet laden with venom. The betrayal in Ricardo's gaze was more painful than 1,000 slaps. Ricardo avoided her gaze, his voice an evasive murmur. It's just a formality, Elena. A family tradition to ensure the purity of the line. You know how my mother is about these things. It's for Leo, so there are no doubts in the future. Ricardo's cowardice was a colder slap than any accusation. Elena, at that moment, felt an icy fire ignite deep within her being. A family tradition, you say, Ricardo? Or just another excuse to humiliate me, to trample me, to doubt my integrity as a wife and mother? Her hands trembled, and she had to grip the edge of the table to keep from losing her balance. The knot in her throat was so large, it prevented her from breathing normally. Tears, this time of contained rage, threatened to overflow. Blood boiled in her veins. It wasn't just for her. It was for Leo, for the injustice looming over her son's innocence. That night, Elena didn't sleep. Her internal monologue was a whirlwind of emotions and strategies. How can I defend myself against this? It's not just a DNA test. It's a judgment on my character, my love, my entire existence. Ricardo, how could he be so weak? How could he believe his mother's poisonous words over everything we shared, everything we built? No, he doesn't believe. He's just afraid. Afraid of his mother, afraid of losing his status, his inheritance. But this time, I won't allow it. This is the line I will not cross. Leo is my life, and no one, absolutely no one, will stain his name or mine. If they want a test, they'll have it. But not just the one they're asking for. I'm going further. I'm going to find the truth, the real truth, behind this whole farce. There's something more, I feel it. Something that doesn't fit in this perfect family. Their obsession with blood, with purity. Is it just pride? Or is there a darker secret they're trying to protect? I will uncover it. For Leo, for my grandmother, for myself. Determination settled in her like a block of ice, cold and hard, transforming pain into an unstoppable force. The image of Doña Amalia laughing at her, Ricardo's hurtful words, everything became fuel for her purpose. Elena's investigation began clandestinely, meticulously. While preparations for Leo's DNA test progressed, she, under the pretext of organizing family archives for the inheritance, immersed herself in the mansion's vast library, a dusty place that neither Ricardo nor Doña Amalia usually visited. Her eyes, accustomed to unraveling the secrets of artworks, now fell upon old photo albums, yellowed letters, forgotten diaries, and genealogical records. The hum of the desk lamp was the only sound breaking the silence of the early mornings, as Elena devoured every document, every footnote. The scent of old paper and faded ink filled her nostrils, a fragrance of mystery and revelation. She discovered strange patterns in birth dates, in mentions of certain aunts or cousins who seemed to have mysteriously disappeared from records or photos. A name, that of a distant cousin of Ricardo's, Isidora Altamirano, appeared several times in ancient documents, always associated with strange events, with family disputes that were mentioned with a disturbing vagueness. Elena felt a piece of the puzzle beginning to fit. Her mind, trained in restoration, sought anomalies, falsifications in the family narrative. Obstacles were quick to appear. Doña Amalia, increasingly paranoid, began to notice Elena's long hours in the library. "Elena, why do you spend so much time among those old papers? Are you looking for something that doesn't concern you?" she would ask, her voice oily. Elena always had an excuse ready, a forced smile. "I'm just making sure everything is in order for the next generation, Doña Amalia." As you always say, tradition is important. The answer, so ironic, left Doña Amalia momentarily satisfied. But her gaze followed Elena with growing mistrust. Frustration assailed her at times. One night, while trying to decipher a handwritten letter, the illegible handwriting and fragile paper drove her to despair. This is useless. How can I find something they've hidden so well for decades? She thought, tears blurring her vision, her head throbbing from exhaustion. The image of Leo, his innocent smile, appeared in her mind, and with it, renewed strength. I cannot give up. Leo deserves the truth, and I deserve my dignity. Her hands, expert in delicacy, now handled the evidence with a surgeon's precision. Every small discovery, every inconsistency, every revealed secret was a rush of adrenaline that pushed her to continue. The night coffee, bitter and cold, had become her only companion in those early mornings of discovery. Her internal monologue was constant. Every day that passes, the net is closing in more. Doña Amalia doesn't suspect the extent of my search. She just thinks I'm a harmless fool. But secrets, like poorly restored artworks, always leave traces. And I'm learning to read them. I have to be fast. Leo's DNA test date is approaching. I cannot let them defeat me with a single truth. I have to be ready for the counteroffensive, for the bigger truth. Her first unexpected ally appeared in the form of Juana, the mansion's housekeeper, a white-haired woman with shrewd eyes who had worked for the Altamirano family for over 50 years. Juana, unlike the rest of the staff who feared Doña Amalia, was not intimidated. She had seen Elena arrive, witnessed her silent humiliation, and noticed the young woman's genuine kindness. Juana had known Isidora Altamirano, the disappeared cousin, and knew the truth of her fate. She had witnessed Doña Amalia's intrigues, her manipulations, how she had woven a web of lies to secure control of the family fortune. One afternoon, as Elena was preparing to search the attic, Juana approached her, whispering, "Mrs. Elena, there are things in this house that people don't want found. If you seek the truth, look in the old trunk in the attic, the one covered with a red blanket. It belonged to Ricardo's great-grandmother. No one has touched it in decades." Elena looked at her, surprised by the unexpected help. Their eyes met, and in Juana's gaze, Elena found a connection, a silent complicity. Juana not only gave her the clue about the trunk, but provided her with a key, and more importantly, told her family stories, untold stories, whispers of deceptions and truths that Doña Amalia had strived to bury. Trust was forged in the silence of the nights, under the dim light of a flashlight in the dusty attic, amidst muffled laughter and whispers of conspiracy. Inside the trunk, Elena found a treasure: diaries of Ricardo's great-grandmother, letters from Isidora, and an old photo album with notes on the back. But the most shocking discovery was a birth certificate that revealed Ricardo was not the biological son of Doña Amalia or her deceased husband, but had been adopted. His biological mother was Isidora Altamirano, the cousin who had been disappeared from family history. Doña Amalia, unable to have children, had adopted Isidora's baby to secure the line of succession and prevent the fortune from falling into strange hands. She had jealously guarded the secret, using fear and lies to keep Ricardo under her control. The revelation struck Elena with the force of lightning. Her breath caught in her throat. Ricardo was not an Altamirano by blood. He was adopted, and his biological mother had been silenced and cast out of the family by Doña Amalia. A flood of emotions engulfed her: incredulity, astonishment, an icy fury at Doña Amalia's cruelty, and immense sadness for the deception Ricardo had lived. "It's a farce. It's all a farce," she whispered, the words barely audible in the silence of the attic. Her hands trembled so much she could barely hold the documents. Tears, this time of astonishment and deep indignation, blurred her eyes. The irony was so cruel, so brutal, that a bitter laugh escaped her lips. They had accused her of tainting the purity of the Altamirano blood, when the purity they so idolized was a lie built on the pain of others. Her second ally was a respected genealogist and historian, Dr. Armando Vera, an erudite and skeptical man who at first dismissed Elena's calls. Mrs. Altamirano, your family's genealogy is well known. There are no mysteries there. But Elena, in her desperation, sent him copies of some of the documents she found in the trunk, asking him to simply verify the dates and names. Vera's professional curiosity was piqued. Upon seeing Elena's meticulousness and the coherence of her findings, Dr. Vera, despite his initial doubts, agreed to a secret meeting. When Elena presented him with the complete series of documents, the birth certificate, the letters, the fragments of Isidora's diary, the hidden correspondence that Doña Amalia had intercepted, Dr. Vera's face transformed, from skeptical to astonished, and finally to indignant. "Ms. Sanchez," he said, his voice trembling, "this is an atrocity, a massive falsification of family history. The case of Isidora Altamirano was an infamous legend, but it was always said that she had run off with a lover, never that she was silenced. It is a historical injustice." Dr. Vera, a man of principles and a defender of historical truth, promised Elena his unconditional support. He, with his vast academic resources, was able to verify the authenticity of each document, trace Isidora's biological family, and confirm every detail of Doña Amalia's plot. He felt a moral duty to help Elena, a brave woman who dared to unearth such an uncomfortable and powerful truth. Their interactions were filled with mutual respect, with Elena marveling at Dr. Vera's ability to connect historical dots, and he, astonished by Elena's intuition and tenacity. The tension in the mansion became unbearable. Doña Amalia, who already believed herself victorious with Leo's imminent DNA test, began to notice that Elena no longer cowered before her comments. There was a new spark in her eyes, a disturbing calm. One afternoon, Doña Amalia summoned Elena to her private drawing room, an opulent space decorated with period furniture. "Elena," she said, her voice a feline purr, "I've noticed your strange confidence lately. You seem too calm for a woman who's about to see her lie unveiled." Her smile was cruel. Elena, chin held high, looked her steadily in the eye. "Sometimes, Doña Amalia, calm is the prelude to a storm, and truth, often, is the most devastating storm." Elena's words were like a blow to Doña Amalia. Her face contorted, her eyes narrowed with icy fury. "How dare you, commoner? You don't know who you're messing with. You will regret these words. When Leo's results come to light, I will drag you through the mud." Elena, at that instant, felt a wave of power, not of arrogance, but of deep conviction. "We'll see, Doña Amalia. We'll see who is dragged through the mud." And she left, leaving a furious and astonished Doña Amalia alone in the drawing room, her heart pounding like a war drum. Elena's internal monologue was a mix of adrenaline and strategy. She underestimated me until the very end. She doesn't understand that the game has changed. Now I hold the cards, and she doesn't even suspect it. Her rage is her weakness, her arrogance, her blindness. Ricardo hasn't said anything. He's hidden behind her, as always. But he too will face his own truth. This night will be long, but it will be worth it. Every pain, every humiliation, every tear, everything will lead to this. The day of the DNA results reading arrived, shrouded in an almost unbreathable tension. The Altamirano family's lawyer's meeting room was an imposing space, with a polished mahogany table in the center and windows overlooking the city. Present were Ricardo, with a pale and sweaty face, unable to look at Elena. Doña Amalia, with an expression of anticipated triumph, sitting upright with her hands clasped, as if about to preside over her own victory. The family lawyers, solemn figures in dark suits, and Elena sitting across the table with Juana by her side, her eyes full of silent support, and Dr. Vera, his face serious and expectant. The notary, a man of circumspect manners, opened the sealed envelope. "We have the results of the paternity test for the minor Leonardo Altamirano Sanchez." Elena's heart pounded, not from fear of the result, but from what would come next. Doña Amalia smiled smugly, a viper's smile. "Please proceed." The notary read, "It is confirmed that Mr. Ricardo Altamirano is in fact the biological father of the minor Leonardo Altamirano Sanchez." A collective sigh escaped from those present. Ricardo lowered his gaze, with barely disguised relief mixed with a pang of shame. Doña Amalia, for her part, let out a dry, victorious laugh. "I knew it. I knew it. What a shame, Elena. All this theater for nothing. Now, what will you say? That you did it for love? Your attempt at fortune hunting has failed. My son is the father, yes. But that doesn't make you worthy of this family." Her voice rose, full of triumphant arrogance. Ricardo, emboldened by his mother's victory, looked up and at Elena with a mixture of reproach and superiority. "You see, Elena, I told you, it was just a formality. But now you know your place." It was then that Elena, with a calmness that chilled everyone's blood, spoke. "No, Doña Amalia, I am not finished. You demanded a paternity test, and it has been confirmed. But there is another DNA test, one that I requested." She took a second sealed envelope, identical to the first, from her bag. Doña Amalia's and Ricardo's smiles froze on their faces. Juana smiled faintly. Dr. Vera nodded, his gaze fixed on Elena. "This test, Doña Amalia, is not for my son." Elena continued, her voice clear and firm, filled with a newly discovered authority. "It is a comparative DNA test of Mr. Ricardo Altamirano and a direct relative of the true patriarch of this family, whose identity you have been concealing and manipulating for decades." Doña Amalia's eyes widened. Her lips trembled. Ricardo looked at her, confused. Then, slowly, his eyes rested on his mother, a nascent fear on his face. "I don't know what you're talking about, Elena. This is madness. Security, get this woman out." Doña Amalia screamed, her voice shrill, her body trembling uncontrollably. She tried to stand up, but her legs buckled. Elena, unperturbed, opened the envelope with an exasperating calm. Everyone's eyes were fixed on her, on the paper she held in her hands. "Here is the result," she began. And the silence in the room was so thick it could almost be cut with a knife. "It is confirmed that Mr. Ricardo Altamirano does not share the same bloodline with the true founder of the Altamirano fortune, Don Rafael Altamirano. He is not an Altamirano by blood. And what's more, the test reveals that Mr. Ricardo Altamirano is the biological son of Isidora Altamirano, his cousin, who was silenced and cast out of the family by you, Doña Amalia, so you could adopt him as your own and ensure the continuity of a line that was not yours. The revelation was a cataclysm. Doña Amalia's face contorted into a mask of pure horror. Her skin turned an ashen gray. Her eyes, once so icy, now reflected a primary terror. A choked scream escaped her lips before she fainted, collapsing into her chair. Ricardo, upon hearing the truth, felt the world crash down on him. His face, previously pale, turned livid. His eyes fixed on Elena, then on the notary, then on his fainted mother. "No, it's not true. It's a lie. My mother would never do something like that," he babbled. Words caught in his throat, his body trembled, the veins in his neck stood out. Cold sweat ran down his forehead. His desperate attempt to regain control was pathetic. The family lawyers looked at each other, their expressions of incredulity and astonishment evident. Juana, to one side, nodded with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. Dr. Vera, with a solemn expression, nodded to Elena, confirming the validity of the truth she had revealed. Power had changed hands in an instant, with an overwhelming and undeniable force. Doña Amalia's downfall was swift and absolute. News of the genealogical deception she had perpetrated for decades spread like wildfire in high society circles. The press, always eager for scandals among the elite, devoured the story with unprecedented fervor. Headlines screamed, "The Altamirano matriarch's farce, a legacy built on lies," and "The true blood was not what they expected." The legal ramifications were devastating. Not only were investigations initiated for document forgery and fraud, but the true heirs of Isidora Altamirano's branch, with the support of Dr. Vera and other historians, began legal proceedings to reclaim part of the fortune that had been snatched from them. Doña Amalia, once untouchable, was stripped of her reputation, her influence, and much of her fortune. Her high society friends, who once flattered her, now turned their backs on her, her names erased from their address books, her invitations withdrawn, whispering behind her back about the Altamirano's shame. She fell into a deep depression. Her pride shattered. Her world of lies crumbled around her. The mansion, once the symbol of her power, now felt like a prison. Ricardo, for his part, was in shock. The discovery of his true ancestry left him in a state of denial and confusion. His relationship with Doña Amalia, the woman he had believed to be his mother and who had manipulated him all his life, became untenable. He withdrew from public life, unable to deal with the shame and betrayal. His world had crumbled, and he was forced to face the truth of who he was and who he was not. The degradation of both was total, a grim reminder that the cleanest family tree could hide the rottenest roots. Elena's triumph, on the other hand, was resplendent, not only for the vindication, but for the peace and purpose she found in her new life. From the humiliated woman, she became a figure of respect, not for the Altamirano wealth, but for her courage and her integrity. The DNA test had not only confirmed Ricardo's paternity, but had freed Leo from the shadow of doubt, giving him a secure and loving future. Elena used her new position and the moral influence she had gained to transform the Altamirano fortune. With the support of Ricardo, who, after a long process of introspection, began to rebuild himself and seek the truth about his own life, the mansion became the headquarters of an art and culture foundation, the Altamirano Sanchez Foundation, dedicated to supporting emerging artists, restoring historical heritage, and offering scholarships to young talented individuals without resources. Her own art studio flourished, becoming an internationally recognized center of excellence. Elena found an inner peace she had never known, a serenity that radiated from her being. There were no longer doubts, no longer fear. The impact on her family was immense. Her grandmother, seeing Elena's success and the restoration of her own family legacy, experienced a remarkable improvement in her health, her eyes shining with silent pride. The significant encounters were countless. The notary who had read the results now looked at her with palpable admiration, seeking her advice on matters of legal ethics. The mansion's former employees, who had witnessed her humiliation, now viewed her with reverent respect, their eyes shining with pride for her just victory. Ricardo, in time, became a true companion. The truth, though painful, had liberated them. He dedicated himself to getting to know his true biological family, healing wounds he didn't know he had, and forging a new path alongside Elena, not as his manipulator, but as his equal. Her office, in the heart of the foundation, was a vibrant place, full of art, books, and life. Her home, the same mansion that was once a symbol of her oppression, transformed into a warm and welcoming home, filled with Leo's laughter, a sound that was the sweetest of victories. And so, my dear friend, the story of Elena Sanchez stands as an enduring testament that truth, however hidden and buried it may be, always finds its way to light, sweeping away lies and revealing the true worth of people. It teaches us that a bloodline can be an iron chain if stained by dishonesty, but that true nobility resides in the integrity of character, in the strength of dignity, and in the unwavering pursuit of justice. Elena's story is not just a personal victory, but a beacon of hope for all who have ever felt belittled or unjustly accused. Because, the truth